The 5-4 decision supports voter-approved reforms where an independent, nonpartisan citizen panel determines voting districts instead of allowing politicians and state lawmakers to draw those districts. Joining me with analysis are political science professor Carl Luna and constitutional law professor Glenn Smith. And Glenn, remind us briefly what this lawsuit was about.
This was technically about Arizona's voter-initiated commission, which drew legislative boundaries for congressional districts.
Like we do here in California.
Yes, like we do here in California. So although California's was not technically at issue, it certainly was hovering over it and was mentioned prominently in the opinion. So this was really about whether two words in the Constitution that say that the time, place, and manner of federal elections have to be determined by the legislature. Did it literally mean the state legislature in Arizona or California, or can the voters decide they want to kick it to an independent commission?
So it was 5-4,
yes.
Kind of close.
Yes.
So what if things had gone the other way?
Well, if things had gone the other way, the California's commission would have been presumptively unconstitutional and would have had to been redone by at least giving some significant role to the legislature, and depending upon how that hypothetical decision would have been written, it might have been spelt the end of it.
Oh, Carl, California does have this Citizens Redistricting Commission. We've had it for a few years now. Can you remind us how it works?
Okay, what the voters of the state did, saying that they didn't want gerrymandered districts where whichever party controls the legislature can stack the deck, as it were, in their favor, passed a constitutional amendment which creates a commission. It has 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 4 independents on it, picked through a process. The legislature gets a final say in removing 24 of the final 40 people that are recommended by the...
So kind of like a jury, how you would choose a jury.
Something like a jury process. And full disclosure, I was one of the final 60 for the original group that was sent up to Sacramento for the legislature. And like Robert Bork, I've said too many things and talked too much. So yeah, they said, no, we're not going to put this guy on the commission. But the idea is to have an independent commission that can draw boundaries based on community, based on interests, based on things other than just political partisanship.
Is there a consensus on how well this commission, our commission, has been working?
I think the consensus is, I mean, we've got 53 congressional seats in California. You've got about 2 which are actually competitive. Possibly Scott Peters' district was made more competitive by this.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was one of that. And I think you've got a couple of state legislative assembly districts. The goal was to create something where you could end up with enough moderates in the mix that Republicans, Democrats would have to play to the center. It's in a polarized society. It's good, like chicken soup, but it's not going to solve the whole problem.
Well, do you think, Glenn, that there's a particular political party that benefits? I'll ask Glenn first, and then you. Do you think there's a political party, or do you think it's soup?
It's hard to say. I mean, it depends on the particular dynamics at a particular time, and so I don't think that this was a clearly politically driven decision by the court.
Let me get back to Carl on that. Do you think that any political parties particularly benefit from our style of having this commission? Well,
the whole goal is not to let a particular party benefit. The general rule would be the party that's in the minority should actually do a little bit better in a fair drawn map than if you allow the party in the majority to draw the map. But again, because we're so separated in terms of zip codes, who wants to live where, you can only play on the edges of this.
And Glenn, do you think today's ruling will encourage other states to adopt this sort of citizen commission type?
I do. I mean, I think that it did give a green light for that, and it basically said that any one of the various ideas or proposals that are out there could be adopted without fear that at least it can be declared unconstitutional.
And going on that note, Carl, so 2016, big election year, presidential election year. Do you think this ruling will have any impact on this election?
With all the other things to deal with gay marriage, with Obamacare, with dealing with the Chinese and debt, and this will be one of those little minor issues that could have some influence in some of the state races. I don't think it's going to rise to the national platform level.
And then finally, we have to talk about this. So dissents. This was kind of a heated little debate today. Any dissents that stood out for you?
Well, today it was actually in another case, the death penalty case. The case itself was fairly minor, was fairly limited and technical, but 2 justices, Ginsburg and Breyer, said in a strong dissent that they might be interested in declaring the entire death penalty unconstitutional, which then provoked responses, very spirited responses from Justices Thomas and Scalia. So you had kind of a mini death penalty smackdown in the context of a case involving Arizona and lethal injection drugs.
And ultimately, they ruled it that it was safe.
But Glenn's got a good point on that. Justice. And now I'm going to vapor lock it. Scalia is
right.
becoming kind of the grumpy old man from the court. He's not pulling his punches and basically calling his fellow members of the court, let's say, judicially challenged when they don't agree with him. Okay. And it's surprising to see so much vehemence coming off of a justice of the Supreme Court.
We will find out what happens a year from now when we get back into it. All right, Glenn Smith and Carl Luna, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.